Nina had always believed in love, the kind of love that felt eternal. The kind that promised safety, warmth, and belonging. She grew up in a modest home. Her family struggling, but her heart full of dreams, laughter, and hope when she met Daniel. Everything changed. He was charming, kind, and handsome. And he made her feel like she was the only person in the world who mattered. His words were honey, his touch electrifying. His promises intoxicating. Nina trusted him completely, loved him fiercely. And soon, she was ready to give up everything for him, her small ambitions, her modest savings. Even the quiet plans she had dreamed of pursuing Alanche, abandoned them willingly, because love, she thought, was worth every sacrifice. She moved to the city with him, leaving her family behind, her childhood friends, the streets where she had grown up, all for the boy who had stolen her heart. Every corner of her new life reminded her of Daniel. He had assured her that she belonged, that they would build a life together, that their love would survive anything but love. She soon learned, can be cruel. Daniel's eyes had a spark that dimmed when others arrived. His laughter became quieter when friends asked about their future. His hands that once held hers with tenderness now occasionally recoiled when responsibilities touched him. And then the whispers started, rumors that Daniel had grown distant, that he had begun seeing someone else, that the promises he had whispered under moonlight were now lies. Nina felt the first sting of betrayal like a knife twisting in her chest. She had given up her home, her safety, her small joys, everything for a love she believed would protect her. And now that love felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Each night she lay awake on a mattress that smelled faintly of him, her eyes staring at the ceiling as tears slid silently down her cheeks. She felt the weight of every sacrifice crushing her, the ache of every abandoned dream gnawing at her soul. Her friends from the village called sometimes, asking if she was happy, asking if love had been worth it. But she could not lie to them or to herself. Every beat of her heart reminded her of the boy who had promised forever. And every memory now tasted bitter. Her life in the city was not the paradise she had imagined. It was lonely, confusing, and laced with anxiety. The apartment was quiet, except for the echo of her footsteps and the faint sound of Daniel's laughter with someone else. The betrayal was crueler because she had trusted fully, surrendered wholly, and hoped endlessly. But beneath the anger, beneath the tears, beneath the trauma, there was a flicker of something fragile, yet enduring. A small voice reminding her that her heart was still beating, that she had survived so far, and that perhaps someday she could rise from this pain. She clutched the blanket around her, staring out the window at the city lights. Feeling small yet determined, the betrayal had left scars deep enough to make her cry herself to sleep for nights on end. Yet even in her despair, she felt the tiniest spark of resolve. She would survive, she would endure, she would find herself again. Even if the boy who had stolen her heart had tried to destroy everything she had loved, days turned into nights, and Nina felt herself disappearing in the vast city she had moved to for love. Every street reminded her of Daniel, the places he had taken her, the cafes where they had laughed, the small bookstores they had explored together. Yet now, those memories were hollow echoes, reminders of a life she had surrendered and the boy who had betrayed her so completely. Her hands shook as she unfolded letters she had once written to him, filled with hopes, dreams, and promises. Every word was a testament to the trust she had given, the love she had poured freely, and the faith she had placed in a heart that would not stay true. She tried to distract herself with work, taking odd jobs, sewing small pieces for local shops, but no task could fill the empty ache in her chest. She walked the city streets aimlessly, passing couples, holding hands, laughing children, and families together. And each sight carved new wounds in her already fragile heart. How could someone betray her when she had given everything? How could love, which had promised so much, leave her stranded in loneliness and despair? Then she saw him unexpectedly, in the park where they had shared their first kiss. Daniel was laughing with another woman, carefree and untouched by the pain he had inflicted. Nina's chest tightened, and the tears she had held back for months poured freely. The betrayal was not just in his leaving, but in the ease with which he replaced her. In the careless way he continued life as if she had never existed. The city felt colder, Harsher, every breath heavier, she sank to a bench, burying her face in her hands. Trembling as grief and rage battled within her, the trauma of her sacrifice, the years of loneliness, the abandonment of family and friends, the dreams she had put aside, hit her all at once. Each tear that fell carried the weight of everything she had surrendered for a love that was never hers to keep. Her heart ached, not just for what she had lost, but for the innocence of believing that love alone could protect her. She remembered her mother's warnings, her friends' gentle cautions, but she had ignored them all, swept away by the sweetness of his promises, the illusion of forever. Yet, even amidst the crushing despair, a small ember of determination glimmered. Nina realized that she could not undo the past, that she could not force him to feel remorse or reclaim the years he had taken from her, but she could reclaim herself. She could survive the betrayal. She could rise from the ashes of the love that had wounded her. With trembling hands, she pulled herself to her feet, wiped the tears from her cheeks, and vowed quietly to herself that she would not let this heartbreak define her. The city was still cruel, the nights still lonely, and the wound in her chest still robe. She had endured pain before, and she could endure it again. Nina began to write in a small journal, pouring her sorrow, anger, and heartbreak onto paper. Every word was a release, every sentence a testament to the love she had given freely and the betrayal she had suffered through the writing. She felt the faint stirrings of strength, a reminder that even in devastation, a heart can survive that night. She stared at the stars above the city skyline, tears still streaking her cheeks, and whispered to herself, "I will rise, I will live, I will love again, but never like this again." Nina could not escape the memories of Daniel. No matter how hard she tried, every corner of the city seemed to whisper his name. Every sound, every scent, every street carried him in ways that made her chest tighten. She walked past cafes they had visited, bookstores they had explored, and parks where they had laughed. In each place reopened the wound of betrayal. The ache in her heart was raw and constant, a reminder that she had given everything for a love that had vanished. She tried to distract herself with work, sewing, and small errands, but nothing could fill the emptiness or silence the voice inside that kept asking why he had left, why he had broken every promise, why he had made her sacrifice so much for nothing. One evening, as she wandered near the park where they had shared their first kiss, she saw him laughing with another woman. The sight pierced her like 1,000 knives. Her hands trembled, her stomach turned, and tears sprang to her eyes. She sank to a nearby bench, covering her face with her hands, the weight of grief, betrayal, and hopelessness crushing her. She had moved across the country, given up her family, left behind her small but cherished life, and now all of it seemed meaningless. The trauma of abandonment and loss pressed on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She remembered every word he had spoken, every smile, every touch, every promise whispered in the moonlight, and felt the unbearable weight of their absence. He had taken her heart, shredded it, and walked away with a careless ease that made her want to scream and cry at the same time. But amidst the storm of pain, a tiny ember of resolve glimmered. She realized she could not undo the past, could not reclaim the love he had taken, could not force him to feel remorse or regret, yet she could reclaim herself. She could survive. She could rise from the ashes of heartbreak. She pulled herself upright, wiped the tears from her cheeks, and whispered quietly, "I will not let this break me." That night, she returned to her small apartment and opened her journal. She poured every ounce of sorrow, every shred of betrayal, every pang of heartbreak onto the pages, letting the pain flow freely through ink and paper. With each word, she felt a small measure of release, a reminder that her heart could endure, that even in devastation, survival was possible. As she finished writing, she looked out over the city's skyline. The lights twinkled like distant stars, and she felt a strange mixture of sorrow and hope. The boy who had betrayed her still lingered in her memories, but he no longer held dominion over her emotions. She had endured trauma, heartbreak, and betrayal, and the very fact that she could still feel, still hope, still care, was proof of her resilience. She whispered to herself again, "I will rise, I will live, I will love again, but never like this again. And as the night air brushed against her face, she felt a tiny spark of strength deep in her chest, a quiet, unshakable reminder that the path forward was hers to claim, and that no betrayal, no cruelty, no heartbreak could ever take her spirit from her. Nina woke each morning with a quiet determination. She had suffered heartbreak, betrayal, and loss, and now she was ready to reclaim her life. She walked the city streets with her head held high, her eyes searching for small opportunities, her hands ready to work. Her heart guarded but alive, she began taking small jobs at local shops, sewing crafts for neighbors, and helping people who reminded her of the kindness she still carried within her apartment, once filled with memories of Daniel. Became a space of quiet strength. Each corner, each window, each small table she cleaned and arranged reminded her that she was no longer just the girl who had loved and lost. She was a woman capable of survival and resilience. She still felt the ache of betrayal, the sting of abandonment, but each day the pain became tempered with purpose. Every person she helped, every smile she offered, every small success she achieved reinforced her belief that she could live fully without relying on the boy who had left her shattered. She visited the park where they had first kissed, not to remember, but to reclaim it for herself. She walked along the paths, touched the benches, and breathed in the scent of flowers without longing for the past. She realized the park, once a symbol of loss, could now be a symbol of her own strength. The trauma and sorrow had shaped her, but they no longer controlled her thoughts or actions that night. She sat at her small desk and wrote in her journal, not just of heartbreak, but of small victories, of courage, of resilience with each sentence. She felt her heart grow lighter, her mind clearer, her spirit stronger. She began to see that life could be beautiful even after betrayal, that love could be kind even if one person had been cruel, that hope could exist even when dreams had been shattered. Weeks turned into months, and Nina's confidence grew. Her hands were skilled, her heart resilient, her mind sharper. She discovered the joy of independence, the power of patience, and the quiet satisfaction of self-reliance. She no longer needed validation from anyone, and the memory of Daniel, though still present, no longer held dominion over her life. The day came when she heard Daniel was in the city again, overseeing business deals. He had not sought her, had not apologized, had not asked for her forgiveness, but instead of fear or longing, she felt calm, and even a quiet pride. She had survived his betrayal, endured his abandonment, and built a life of dignity and strength. She walked past him without hesitation, her steps steady, her eyes forward, and did not flinch. She knew now that her value was not tied to the boy who had left her, but to the courage she had found within herself. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky with gold and crimson, Nina stood on her balcony, letting the wind brush against her face, the warmth of the light fill her chest, and the ache of heartbreak transform into quiet power. She whispered to herself, "I survived, I endured, I rose," and for the first time in years, she felt tears of release and triumph mingling on her cheeks, knowing that no betrayal, no heartbreak, no trauma could ever steal her spirit again. News spread that Daniel was back in the city, overseeing business deals and living the life he had always chased. Nina did not seek him, yet the knowledge of his presence hit her like a thunderbolt. Her heart tightened, her chest ached, and old memories surged. Laughter under the mango tree, stolen kisses by the river, promises whispered under the stars, all of it, once sacred, now haunted her with the cruel reality of betrayal. Yet she did not allow herself to crumble. She had survived years of heartbreak, trauma, and loneliness, and she knew she could endure this too. She walked through the streets she had once wandered with him, her head held high, her steps measured. Her heart guarded each sight of Daniel, each echo of his presence, reminded her not of weakness but of survival, not of love lost, but of strength gained. She passed the cafe where they had shared dreams and aspirations, feeling the pang of sorrow but also the quiet triumph of having endured. She no longer longed for his approval, no longer sought his validation. The betrayal he had inflicted had once crushed her, but now it only reminded her of the power she had claimed through resilience and courage that evening. She sat on the bench by the river where they had first met, the water reflecting gold in the dying sunlight. She let herself cry, tears streaming freely, carrying grief, sorrow, anger, and release in equal measure. Every tear was a testament to the love she had given fully, the sacrifices she had made, and the trauma she had survived. She whispered to herself. I loved, I lost, I survived, and as the evening breeze brushed against her face, she felt the ache in her chest soften, replaced by the quiet strength of a woman who had endured the impossible. Days later, Daniel tried to reach out, perhaps seeking reconciliation, perhaps curiosity, perhaps regret, but Nina did not answer. She had learned that no apology could erase the years of abandonment, that no words could reclaim the innocence she had sacrificed, that no charm could undo the trauma he had left in her heart. Instead, she focused on herself, on her work, on her small acts of kindness, and on the life she was building with the pieces of her heart that he could never touch. She walked past him one afternoon in the market, their eyes meeting briefly. She felt a flicker of old pain, but it passed quickly, replaced by a quiet, unshakable pride. She had survived betrayal. She had endured heartbreak. She'd reclaimed herself, and no one, not even the boy who had once stolen her heart, could diminish the courage she now carried inside. Each night, she sat by her window watching the stars, and felt the weight of the trauma she had endured transform into a lesson in resilience. She realized that heartbreak, cruelty, and betrayal were painful. Yes, but they were also proof that she had loved fully, felt deeply, and survived against all odds. And in that quiet reflection, she felt tears once reserved for sorrow now carry a mix of release, empowerment, and triumph. Her heart, though scarred, was alive. Her spirit, though wounded, was unbroken, and the girl who had given up everything for love now stood tall, whole, and stronger than she had ever imagined. Nina had survived heartbreak, betrayal, and trauma, and now she finally felt the quiet triumph of reclaiming her life. She woke each morning with the sun, letting its warmth fill her chest, reminding her that she had endured everything and was still standing. She worked in the market, sold her crafts, helped neighbors, and smiled at children who reminded her of the innocence and joy she had nearly lost. Each day was a testament to resilience, a quiet victory over the boy who had once stolen her heart and walked away. Each small success, every compliment, every moment of independence strengthened her, teaching her that her worth was never defined by someone else's choices. She visited the park where she and Daniel had first shared dreams, not to remember him, but to reclaim the place for herself. She walked along the paths, touched the benches, and breathed in the air freely, without longing, without fear. Without the weight of past betrayal, she realized that the city, once a place of sorrow and loss, could now be a canvas for her courage and determination. The trauma she had endured, the sorrow she had suffered, and the tears she had shed were not wasted. It forged a heart stronger than she had ever imagined. She no longer needed Daniel's approval, his attention, or his presence. Her spirit was whole, and her life belonged entirely to her. One evening, as she sat by the river watching the sun set, she felt tears stream down her cheeks, but these were tears of release, of triumph, of healing. The pain of betrayal had transformed into quiet power, and the ache in her chest, though never fully forgotten, had become a reminder of strength rather than sorrow. She whispered softly to herself, I survived, I endured, I rose, and for the first time in years, she felt complete. She had loved fully. She had given her heart. She had been hurt, yet she had not broken. She had taken the pain, the trauma, and the heartbreak, and used it to build a life of dignity, courage, and hope. Days turned into weeks, and Nina continued to grow. She invested in her skills, helped more people in her community, and discovered the joy of independence. The city that had once been a cage of sorrow became a space of empowerment. Her laughter returned, tentative at first, then bold and free. Her heart, though scarred, was capable of love once again, not dependent on another, not fragile, not surrendered, but strong and resilient. As night fell and the stars shimmered above the skyline, Nina stood on her balcony, feeling the wind brush her face, the warmth of the fading sun on her chest, the peace of knowing she had survived the worst. She had endured the ultimate betrayal. Yet she had claimed herself, her tears now carried release. Healing and triumph, she had loved, lost. And risen, she was free, she was whole, she was stronger than heartbreak. She was Nina, a woman who had given everything for love and had emerged unbroken, empowered and capable of facing any storm that life would bring.